Hello everyone, it's me, Monica P. Hall, aka Conduit of Healing, and it is time for our weekly psychic messages for the collective. And I'm pretty excited about this week because we are about to get into the nuts and bolts of something that a lot of us talk about. It's kind of been going around in terms of like social media being important, right? But what's the 411? What's the nitty gritty? What's the nuts and bolts of something called self-love, right? And why does it feel selfish? Okay, but before we get started, make sure you are subscribing to the channel if you've been enjoying these messages. After you've watched this particular video, make sure you're hitting the like button so that, more people can see this because, more people need this good news that you're getting on a weekly basis. So don't keep it to yourself. Make sure you're sharing it. Make sure you're telling people about it. All right. Also, if you feel like, it's time for you and I to have a little one-on-one time, if you feel called to book a psychic reading or a Reiki session, or if you're a light worker starseed and you could use a little help in terms of just kind of going down your path, getting a little bit of clarity about yourself, maybe even getting a little bit more direction, make sure you're also, thinking about signing up for a light worker mentoring session, okay? All of this, the beginning of it, if you will, starts on just booking a free appointment for a consultation. Yeah, and that's on my website, www.conduitofhealing.com/appointments. Okay? So yeah, take advantage of the free consultation. You have nothing to lose on that, and we can just work from there. All right? All right, this week's message. All right, crew, what do we got? Why does self-love feel selfish? You are taught to put yourself last from a very young age. During the developmental years, children are not only taught to share, but they are also taught to suppress their innate desire to take up space, feel heard, important, or worthy. Whether it's cultural, religious, or tradition, children are not taught the importance of either liking nor loving themselves, but to seek outside validation as proof of worthiness to be loved. All right. This is a big one. This is such a huge one because it's something that's constantly coming up. How we approach all our relationships in life really stem from our ability to love ourselves. There has been a lot of talk about toxicity, right? There has been a lot of talk about manipulation. There's been a lot of talk about narcissism. There's been a lot of talk about how to navigate relationships with other people. But we almost use something like self-love as a throwaway concept when in actuality, it's a critical thing that we must learn in order for us to develop healthy relationships with other people. Like the crew talked about, seeking validation outside oneself. Do you know how many people are walking around thinking that if someone else does not find them attractive, they're not attractive? If someone else does not find them lovable, they're not lovable. If someone else basically doesn't validate things that they feel insecure about or things that they have not taken the time to really develop for themselves, they're putting themselves in a very precarious and dangerous situation. And the reason is because when we are seeking outside validation, we are leaving ourselves wide open to be abused. And that can be in any way, shape, or form. Verbal, psychological, physical, you name it. When you are seeking validation outside of yourself, you are opening yourself up to a slew of things that you may or may not be able to handle. So why are we not taught to love ourselves? Why are we not taught to prioritize ourselves? And the answer is pretty simple. How do you control somebody who loves themselves? How do you manipulate, for good or ill, someone who has been taught to truly develop a relationship with themselves, someone who's been taught it's okay for them to take up space, someone who's been taught to love themselves, someone who's been taught to appreciate themselves? These kinds of people really are kind of the kryptonite to society as we know it. We've actually been taught to resent people who are confident. We have been taught to think ill of someone who puts their well being first. We have been taught that anyone who basically does not allow us to manipulate them, get over on them, take advantage of them, that there's something wrong with them as opposed to there might be something wrong with us. And this, my friends, dear souls, is the crux of what needs to be healed throughout the collective. We have to change the narrative and really start understanding that in order for the entire world to heal, we have to revisit and reevaluate the relationship with the self. I talk to so many clients in my work, and the concept of love is probably the number one thing that I talk about. But what is heartbreaking to me is that we put ourselves in peril seeking the love of someone else. You and your partner broke up. You feel like they were the love of your life. You feel like you need to get them back. You need to get them back. You need to get them back. First thing you need to understand, all relationships we have with people is an agreement that we're going to come together in a relationship. And I don't care if the relationship is, you're just dating, you're in a serious relationship, you're in a committed relationship up to a marriage. You have to understand, we have to accept that every day that everyone shows up to meet one another is a day that they choose one another. Again, I need to say this when it comes to commitments and marriages too, because there's a lot of people out there who are married to another person but feel alone in the relationship because someone has already emotionally detached themselves from the situation. Yes, they can share the same home. Yes, they can share the same bed. Yes, they can physically share space, but someone's left, and therefore there's an unhappiness there. We choose one another every day that we show up to be in a relationship. Doesn't matter what the relationship is. Why do we choose one another? See, that's another thing. Has anyone ever told you that the relationships that you have with people, whether it be romantic, whether it be friendship, is you actually gifting yourself with people? I'm telling you right now, all the people you choose to have your life should be a gift to your life. Now, why am I using the word like gift? Because the purpose of relationships is to enhance our life experience as individuals. The purpose of relationships is to give us basically, something to aspire to in the terms of bettering ourselves, in terms of learning different methods and modes of living, in terms of seeing life from a different perspective. That's the purpose of a relationship. So if you're one of those people that knows a lot of people, but you don't have any friends, and I know some of you are out there because I've spoken to some of you, you need to ask yourself, why do I not feel worthy to have people in my life that I can rely on? Why do I not think highly enough of myself to surround myself with people who want my best interest? Why would I surround myself with sycophants? Why would I surround myself with people who tell me what I want to hear or what they think I want to hear and when I want to hear it, rather than people who care enough about me to call me out on my shit when I need to be called out on my shit, to letting me know I'm wrong when I'm wrong, to questioning me if I seem to be, heading in the wrong direction in life. If you don't have these kinds of people in your life, I question whether or not you have a loving relationship with yourself. I know that's going to hit a lot of you like square between the eyes, but it's true. Now, I'm just in that instance talking about your friends who you surround yourself with. Now, let's talk about love. Are you making sure you're attracting people in your life to you who can love you? Not people who you love or people you feel like you need to chase, but people who actually see the true you and not only accept that person, but is excited, passionate, and loving and kind towards that person. I've encountered far too many people who want the love of someone who doesn't want them. What is that about? Is there some part of ourselves that thinks if I can make someone else love me who doesn't want to, if I can make them love me, if I can win this person, this proves I'm worthy of respect, worthy of feeling beautiful, worthy of feeling loved, worthy of being called husband or wife, worthy of the title of girlfriend, worthy of just insert whatever answer. A person cannot give you what's missing when you're the thing that's missing. I'm going to say it again. A person cannot give you what's missing when you're the thing that's missing. A person cannot give you what's missing if you're the thing that's missing. You're not going to go find the lost pieces of yourselves in your girlfriend, in your boyfriend, in your job, in your friends. What's missing is you, and what's missing is that connection to oneself, that loving relationship that really appreciates you first for just existing. I don't know why when I talk to people about loving themselves they make it seem harder than it is, but I always ask them to start with the basic thing. Be happy that you're breathing. Be happy that you're embodied. Thank yourself for continuing to be embodied. Thank yourself for still breathing. Thank yourself for, the great night's sleep that you might have had, because you know what? In these times, people are not sleeping as well as they would like to. People are not sleeping enough. Where the quality of sleep, may not be great, due to health reasons, due to stress levels, for a lot of different reasons. And yet these are the things that we take for granted, the smallest things. Love yourself if you're taking good care of yourself. Love yourself if you're taking good care of your spirit. Love yourself if you're telling yourself the truth, even if you don't want to hear it. Love yourself for leaving toxic relationships. Love yourself for speaking up on your own behalf. Love yourself for every time you use your power and you stand up in that power. Love yourself for pushing back and fighting to exist, fighting to speak, fighting, to be heard. Love yourself for these things. It's really not as hard as we make it out to be. What is hard is the unlearning that to do any of the things that I just mentioned makes you a selfish person. Believe it or not, we do not exist for one another. I'm going to say that again because I think there's a lot of you who have taken and misused your roles in life, whether the role be spouse, whether the role be parent, whether the role be caretaker, and you have made your role in another person's life the only reason why you exist. I'm not sure if you realize this, but when you do that to other people, it puts a lot of pressure on them to justify and validate the reason that you're here. Typically, people don't like it. Typically, people don't like their identity, their life, their existence being so attached to someone else that it becomes codependent. How many of you are parents that when left with an empty nest, you absolutely have no identity left? How many of you that when going through a divorce or a breakup don't know who you are anymore because that other person's not there for you to measure your existence by? We don't exist for one another. We exist for the sake of existing. That's number one. Number two, we've been given the beautiful gift of free will and the ability to make choices so that we actually can say, this is the kind of life experience I want in this moment in time. This is the kind of life experience I want on this day. This is the kind of life I want this year. This is the kind of life I want in the next 5 years. This is the kind of life I want for the duration of the time that I'm here. We allow ourselves to use outside people, things, and obligations as distractions to not go within and checking in with ourselves to see what's going on. Because why? Because what's in there? Well, all the things that, scare you. They're hiding, waiting for you to notice them. Your insecurities are there. Your trauma's there. You may even have a whole section of your brain that holds all the tapes of all the negative talk that you've endured your entire life from perhaps a parent, perhaps a sibling, perhaps a, religious practice that, you practice, perhaps from, an ex-spouse, an ex-friend, just, all those people that tell you you're not good enough, that there's something wrong with you, that you're crazy, that you're weird, that you're not worthy and you're not beautiful enough, you're not thin enough, you're not smart enough, you're not talented enough, all those things that is so much easier to believe than it is to believe maybe I'm good with me, and if you have an issue with me, perhaps I'm just not the right person for you. And I know that sounds crazy because I just literally got finished talking about your mama, your daddy, your sister, your brother, your ex, your friends, whatever. But we don't realize a lot of our relationships are out of habit as opposed to out of necessity. What do I mean by that? This is where I'm going to get very controversial. If your toxic relationship happens to be a relationship with your family, it doesn't make it any less of a toxic relationship. If when you're around these people, you feel bad, you feel less than, you are being verbally or emotionally or psychologically abused, and it just kills you a little bit inside to be around those people, it's okay not to be around those people. Why am I saying that? Because a person who loves themselves would never put themselves in a situation where they are going to be hurt if they didn't have some sort of obligation attached to it. I love myself. All right. So if I have a situation where, let's just say I'm meeting someone new, and all the red flags are going off, they're toxic, they put me down, they belittle me, so on and so forth. If I love myself, I'm going to get myself out of that situation. I'm going to send that person on their way. Why wouldn't I do that just because it's a relative in that role as opposed to a partner or a possible romantic partner? You see what I'm saying? We as societies, and it's a lot of societies, we actually teach one another to give more importance, to give more respect, to give more love to other people based on our relationship with them. And this is why so many people, and thank you all that do, seek out guidance to help them kind of unravel toxic relationships that start typically at a very young age, that typically start at home, with your parents or an absence of a parent or, those kinds of things. Why? Because when you're young, perhaps you're not being guided as well as, you deserve. Perhaps you are being raised by people who don't know what to do either. And, kudos to all the parents who are never stop trying to learn how to be a good parent and be a good person, kudos to you. Kudos to the parents who are honest that being an adult kind of sucks sometimes, and there's no user guide to how to be a good parent, or hell, how to be an adult, how to be healthy. You just do your best with what you have, but you never give up learning to grow, trying to be better, and passing this information on to your children. You know, the whole purpose of like being a parent is to guide a mini human into being a healthy adult. That's the whole purpose of being a parent. Some people have become parents to validate their own existence. Typically doesn't end up well for the child or the parent, because now you've made your identity their existence. Yeah, codependency. Some people have children because that's what society says that they need to do, and some people, like myself, don't have them at all, and yet are given a hard time by people who will never raise a child that ever had, people who will never financially support a child that I've ever had. Like, their voice matters. But this is what we do to one another. Why? Because we validate the majority more than the individual. And it's wrong. I just need to say that again. I've said it before. I've said it before in other videos. But it's wrong. If we are going to have a healthy society, we have to begin advocating healthy individuals. We have to understand the limitations of free will. Number one limitation, you might love me, I might not love you in the same way. There's no need for you to have a tantrum about how to get me, how to convince me, how to basically violate my free will and get what you want, because that's what's going to make your ego feel better. What you could do, what the healthier thing to do would be to cry. Go somewhere, cry, mourn it, be sad about it, but respect the fact that someone who doesn't want you romantically is just how it's going to be. And there's nothing that you can do about it if they don't want you. It doesn't mean that you're not worthy. It doesn't mean that you're less than. It means that you're not the person for them. And regardless of whether or not you want to recognize it, they're not the person for you either. The person for you will want you just as much as you want them. It's another thing we get wrong. We get so fixated on what we want. Never occurs to us, hey, maybe I just think I want them because they don't want me. And maybe I just really need to accept things as they are, because it seems to me the person that really wanted me, I would want them. And this would be a lot easier. If you're finding yourself where you are doing a whole bunch of somersaults and gymnastics trying to make a situation work, I'm going to tell you right now, it's not going to work. And the reason why it's not going to work is because a relationship requires at least more than one person. When there's romance involved, when there's friendship involved, when there's family involved. You can't make decisions for both of you. You can't control both of you. You can only do you. And the more you try to push your way into a relationship or a situation where a person's already told you no, the worse you're going to make it. Back off. Stop. Accept. And eventually, yes, move on. An individual who loves themselves would not want to force anyone to be in their lives. Because when you have to force it, they're really telling you, I don't accept who you are. It doesn't work for me. And guess what? It doesn't have to. All right? Love yourself enough to recognize I'm not wanted here. Love yourself to know that this isn't good for me. Love yourself enough to go, I don't want to control a situation with someone else. Love yourself enough to know that it is not anyone else's job to make you feel good about you. Take your power back. Hold yourself accountable. Start small. Some of you are familiar with my exercise I do with my clients. I'm going to share it with you guys if you want to try. Those of you who are struggling with loving yourself. I always say start with a list of 3 different categories. Something that I like about myself, something that I don't like about myself, and something that I love about myself. Now listen, if you struggle with this, go small. I like my nose. I love my laugh. I love my sense of style. I don't like the fact that sometimes I jump to the wrong conclusions because I don't want to hear things out. All right, there is your homework. You see what I mean? So something you like, something you love, and something you don't like. This will help you kind of see yourself as yourself. I encourage that you write it all down first. Don't judge, just write it down. And then give yourself a moment, maybe a day or so, go back to the list and really look at it. Why do I ask you to do that? Fresh eyes, less harsh judgment, less like, looking for something to nitpick and attach yourself to so you can beat yourself up. Loving yourself is a lot easier than you realize. What you have to do first, though, is unlearn the indoctrination that somehow all of the rest of the world's feelings are more important than yours. All of the rest of the world's voice is more important than yours. All of the rest of the world has answers to who you are. I promise you we don't. Okay? So that's all I have for you today. Once again, if you have enjoyed this video, please make sure you're hitting the like button. Also, if you would like to hear more of my work, there's a slew already on my channel. If you subscribe to it, you'll know. And also, if you subscribe, you will know about what I'm going to be doing next week. You'll get notified. All right. And finally, if you're enjoying, how I'm delivering these messages, make sure that you are scheduling your free consultation to get a psychic reading, to get a Reiki session, or to do a light worker mentoring session. As you develop as a light worker, there's always going to be parts where you're just like, I'm not sure where forward is. And, working with me, I can actually help you identify it. All right. So thank you so much for listening. And I absolutely enjoy when you guys comment. So make sure you're keeping the comments coming. Please share this information with your friends. Again, this is really my attempt to, upgrade all of us one soul at a time. All right. So thanks again. Thanks so much for tuning in. Mwah! Namaste.